We are so excited for this next panel because we are going to be talking about federalism and the balance of power between state and local governments and the federal government. And it's really been, I think, the through line of all of the panels that we've heard from so far. So without further ado, I would like to say welcome to the co-chairs of the National Governors Association's Federalism Policy Working Group, Republican Governor Phil Scott of Vermont and Democratic Governor Josh Stein of North Carolina. Thank you both so much for being here. Well, I'm really looking forward to this conversation. And Governor Scott, let me start with you. What does federalism mean to you? How do you define it in this moment?
Well, it really is about the framework of the Constitution, what the framers, the founders decided to do to balance power. And they didn't do it to secure the presidency or the Congress or the courts. They did it to protect Americans, right? To make sure that everyone is treated the same and that there's a playbook to go back to. So I think it's really important for us to continue to remind people that there is this federalism approach that protects the states so that we can be the experiments, we can actually do the work. And I think it's really important that, especially in these times, that we remind everyone, not just one president, not just one Congress, but everyone, that we're not the junior partner here. We're partners.
Powerful point. Go ahead, please. Yeah. Governor Stein, how do you define it and pick up on this final point, the significance of it right now?
Very similarly to Governor Scott, federalism is the division of power between the national government and the states. And it was created by our founders in the Constitution because they had certain beliefs. One is that when power is concentrated, it can corrupt and it can lead to tyranny or the oppression of the people, oppression of Americans. Another belief is that government is best at making decisions closest to where those decisions take effect. Your last panel on education, education is policy driven by states and local governments, much more so than the federal government. And there's also this recognition that when you have a lot of different states, there can be laboratories of democracy. We all can experiment. Somebody mentioned, I think it was Spencer, that Mississippi really turned the entire country around when it comes to the science of reading. And that was because one state went out there and figured something else out, and we're now all aggressively copying it. And I want to go back to the first point, the liberty point, because it really is fundamental to North Carolina. We were the first state to take an official act to separate from the crown in 1776, before the Declaration of Independence. We were the second to last state to actually adopt, of the 13 colonies, to adopt the Constitution because we insisted that there be a Bill of Rights, that we wanted to make sure that people were protected from oppression. And when you have divided power between the federal and the state governments, and then you separate the power at both levels among the legislative, judicial, and executive branches, what you've done is you've ensured that to the best you can, any system can be broken, but to the best you can, that no one actor, whether it's a legislature or it's an executive official, can assume all power, because when they do, invariably, it will be disconnected from the interests of the people.
You know, we're seeing this tension play out right now a little bit when it comes to disaster preparedness. Last week, North Carolina, Vermont, and 22 other states actually sued the administration over conditions that it's trying to put on disaster preparedness, disaster relief. Governor Stein, why is this so important? Why is this a case that you believe is worth fighting?
Yeah, there were two parts of what the federal government, the administration, tried to do that was offensive. One is they're trying to condition the support of the federal government to Americans who are in desperate need. When a disaster strikes, our objective, whether it's local government, state government, or federal government, must be to do everything in our power to save life and to help people get their lives back together. So the notion that you would condition that on a state agreeing to something is offensive in the first part. The second is what they were wanting us to condition it to had to do with elections, which has nothing to do with disaster recovery, and also offends federalism because elections administration is to be left to the states. Federal government shouldn't be dictating how states conduct their elections. And so it was simply wrong, and North Carolina was right to sue. We're
going to flesh out that discussion on elections as well, but staying on this point for a moment, Governor Scott, how do you see this lawsuit? Are you supportive of it?
Well, again, Josh did a great job with the technical aspect, the lawyeristic outlook. But I'm looking at it as much from the practical standpoint. We've had our share of challenges. We had Irene in 2011, and then we had two flooding events, exactly 1 year apart in 23 and 24, devastating for us. So we relied on FEMA for a lot of help, but we saw some of the missteps that they were making. They were great in the initial response, getting on the ground, getting food and water and so forth. But after that, they were stepping all over themselves, and we think there's a better way. We had a compact agreement with other states. When North Carolina flooded, we sent our USAR team, our urban search and rescue team, down there. We've been all over the country with our urban rescue team as well, as far as Texas. So we think that there's a better approach, but we need the power of the purse. We need funding when we need it. It's like your family. You have family members, and you have one of your family members that's struggling and needs your help. Well, you don't all of a sudden just ignore them and make sure that everyone gets the same amount of money. You go to that child and you help them. And it's the same thing here with the states. We don't all need FEMA help, but when we need it, we need it.
Well,
may I just pick up on that? Just because I want to thank Governor Scott. There are so many states that came to the aid of North Carolina. It was less than 2 years ago. We had the most devastating storm hit North Carolina in our history, $60 billion in damage, 108 lives lost in Western North Carolina, Hurricane Helene. The deluge was really incomprehensible. And the response to it actually was the way federalism is supposed to work. One, there were a lot of states who came to our assistance, but the federal government came to our assistance in a very meaningful way. We actually had the U.S. Army from Tennessee and from Fort Bragg in North Carolina come to help deal with cleaning up the chaos, debris, mud. FEMA has been a good partner. I want to thank Oklahoman Secretary Mullen. Since he has assumed the head of DHS, FEMA has been infinitely more responsive to giving us the reimbursements that we're supposed to get for doing the work to recover. And so when you think about something like a disaster, it should be locally driven, state managed, and federally supported. And so the resources are where it's really critical that the federal government step up, because the scale of that storm, $60 billion, the region of Western North Carolina does not have the resources to cope with that. The state of North Carolina, even though we have appropriated over $3 billion to address it, that's just a drop in the bucket. Only the federal government has the resources to be helpful, and we really need the federal government to continue to step up. I have a $10 billion request before the OMB, the administration, and Congress. So that's how we see it. And honestly, I think that there's a really good dialogue going on between the states and the federal government. There's the FEMA Review Council, and initially they were talking about eliminating FEMA altogether, and I was opposed to that. And now what they're heading toward is much more flexibility and quicker money to states so that we can then respond quickly. And that's a step in the right direction.
And do you see areas where you would like to see FEMA, as Governor Stein is laying out, push forward, make some changes? Have you already seen some of this?
Yeah, absolutely. I worked with Governor Walz on this as well a couple of years ago. And I think that, again, the response was great. It's the recovery period. We know best in our states what we need, and we know where we need it. And they just get all tied up in regulation and their process and don't really get what needs to be done in an expeditious way. And so we think we can do it better. If they can forward the money to us, we can, under guidelines, we can do it better.
I want to talk about immigration and the push and pull between federal and state governments when it comes to immigration. Governor Scott, obviously the administration has a very robust approach to its immigration enforcement. You are someone who actually grew up in Vermont, and that helped shape how you view this issue and how you view that relationship between the federal government. How do you think that relationship is playing out right now when it comes to immigration?
Well, first of all, I want to give credit where credit's due. The Trump administration has done a good job in securing our borders. That needed to be done, and that was accomplished. It's the how of what they're doing next that is bothersome to me. You know, I grew up in the third largest city in our state, population 10,000. We were a product of an economic boom. It was really about the granite. We have the best granite in the world in Vermont. And so we had immigrants coming in. We had Italians coming in as sculptors. We had French Canadians coming in to work in the sheds themselves. We have Scandinavians. We had the Scots with their engineering. And it created this melting pot in Barrie of all different backgrounds. And it was so healthy. It was so good. I mean, again, for such a small city, it touched so many lives. So I think, you know, we need more immigration from my standpoint, legal immigration. There's got to be a pathway to do that. And I think, and we give credit where credit's due, we give blame where blame is warranted. And Congress has batted this around, kicked it back and forth, Republicans and Democrats, for decades. We had the Gang of 8 that came forward with a proposal, passed the Senate, and then was lost in the House. That would have done it. That would have helped us. We wouldn't be in this position today, I believe, if we just moved forward. But that is to do to, I think, partisanship, elections, thinking about who's going to be in power, what can we do to leverage this to get in power. And we should be, every single one of us, I think governors are more sensitive to this than others, but we should just worry about doing the right thing. Forget about the politics, forget about the next election, just do the right thing. And 9 times out of 10, that's what works.
Governor Stein, how is the immigration enforcement playing out in North Carolina? And how do you think immigration reform gets done in Washington?
On July 4th, that was a special day for all of us, 250 years since the Declaration of Independence. And in the morning, Anna and I had the great honor of participating in a naturalization ceremony. 47 new Americans came from 25 different countries, Brazil, Japan, Honduras, countries people probably hadn't even heard of. But it was so emotional. There were so many tears in that room because these people were desperate to be part of what this country is, to pursue the American dream that Governor Stitt is so eloquently championing. So we are a nation of immigrants. We cannot forget that. It is part of our DNA. When the Constitution was drafted by our founders and they separated power and divided it between the state and the federal government, they made clear that immigration is a federal issue. It should be. Our immigration system does not work well. Congress refuses to act. They are too happy to score political points rather than to address a real problem. There was a group of governors at our last NGA meeting, bipartisan group, that were wrestling with these issues. And I was frankly surprised to hear such agreement on basic ideas: secure borders, a rational immigration system, making sure that violent people who break our laws and hurt our people should be deported, but also a recognition that people who've been here a long time, paid their taxes, contribute to their communities, don't commit crimes, they deserve a path to legal status for some, for citizenship to others. And there was pretty much unanimity behind those principles. And I just want Congress to stop focusing on politics and start focusing on the country, just as Governor Scott said.
Well,
Can I add a little bit more? We share a border with Canada, and we also have a thriving dairy industry. And we also suffer from a shift in demographics. We're getting older. We don't have many youth. We have a labor shortage. So we have a lot of immigrants, some legal, some not, in our dairy industry. If they were to come in and evacuate all of the immigrants that were not here legally, our dairy industry would be dead tomorrow.
And the impact would be?
It would be devastating for our state, and devastating for those people. They've been here, some of them have been here for decades. They pay taxes. They're part of our community. And there should be a pathway for them to become citizens.
Well,
and they struggle with that.
I hear this very firm agreement and this call to action to Washington that you both have, which is basically to get the politics out of this issue and try to get a broader bipartisan deal done.
It's not complicated, just solve a problem.
I do want to talk about another big issue. We are here in the midterm elections. We are just a few years away from another presidential election. I promise I'm not going to ask one governor if they're running for president today. You have my word on that.
No.
But I do have to ask you both, because President Trump has called for voting to be nationalized. And Governor Stein, as you're saying, the Constitution says that elections are the business of the state. So how do you prepare for, are you thinking about how the administration is approaching elections?
I think what the president is doing when it comes to elections is immensely damaging to the health of our democracy. Every candidate, every governor ran for governor. Every one of us, when we decided to put our hat in the ring, we went as hard as we could to win. We all wanted to win. We're competitive people. But every one of us was prepared for the idea we might lose. And in a democracy, when you lose, you have to be able to accept that truth. What you need to do is, instead of trying to fight about it after the fact and try to change the rules to get reelected, to take a seat, which is what actually a candidate for North Carolina Supreme Court Justice did in 2024, shocking abuse of the laws. What you should do is reflect and say, why did I lose? What can I do or my party do to better understand and connect with the needs of the people of my state or district or whatever it is to win the next time? And the president's obsession on trying to relitigate his loss in 2020 is so damaging. Look, he won in 2024. I can say that out loud. He lost in 2020. He should be able to say that out loud.
Governor Scott, how do you see this? How do you respond to, how are you preparing for what the president says? Voting should be nationalized.
Again, I think we go back to the Constitution. It's the 10th Amendment that's pretty clear on the role of the states in terms of elections. So I think we should follow that. And we're closer to the people. Our state is not the same as North Carolina. We've said this. Many have said this. We're all different. In Vermont, I would have to say, mail-in ballots are popular. Who are they popular with? Republicans. Because rural Vermont is made up of Republicans. And that's when we get people to vote. We don't have great voter participation. But with mail-in ballots, that's helped. And it's helped elect, more balance in our legislature. So again, I think we're closer to our people, and we know what's right and what's wrong, and we can control the elections. And I would hope that all, if not the majority of Democrats would agree that this is ours, not the federal government. And as a reminder, as we went back to before, we were here before the federal government was. The states were. And so we formed the government. Now they're getting bloated, and we need to protect our rights.
So final question to both of you. Where are the areas, or what is the one big area, Governor Scott, why don't you start, where you think federalism is working well?
I'm sorry again, what's
where
working?
federalism is working well, where this push and pull between the federal governments and the states is working.
Yeah, well, again, I think the response to emergencies like with FEMA, I think it is working well. It just needs some tweaks to make it work better. But that's an area, as I said before, when we have a state that's in trouble, whether you've used it or not in the past, they're there for you. The government should be there for you. And a rural state like ours, we would be bankrupt without some help from the federal government. So I would say that's the area that I would say works the best.
Governor Stein?
I'll give a technical example. I'm honored to co-chair the Council of Governors, which is 10 of us, 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, along with Governor McMaster from South Carolina. And last year, we talked about unmanned aerial systems, drones, and they're causing real security issues in our state at critical infrastructure, at prisons. And because under our federal system, appropriately so, air travel is exclusively the domain of the federal government, the FAA. You cannot have 50 states setting air traffic rules. So originally, states were precluded from mitigating drones that are going to cause damage or harm. Governor Landry of Louisiana and I wrote a letter to Congress. Last year, they passed the Safer Skies Act, which enables us to get trained to have local and state law enforcement so that we can mitigate malicious drones when necessary. We had a meeting yesterday, and very few states have been able to go through it, and so it was a give and take. We asked, hey, we need to have more locations where people can be trained. They heard us, the Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security. And honestly, to me, that's federalism working exactly the way it's supposed to, where the federal government's engaging the states, hearing from us, and then responding to legitimate concerns.
Well, just fascinating to hear from both of you on this issue where, again, it has really been the through line of all of the conversations that we have had. Governor Scott, Governor Stein, thank you so very much.
Thank you, Kristen.
We really appreciate it. Thank you.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.